God believes that parties are important. Yes, there is an importance in festivals and parties. Here in the Milwaukee area, we have Summerfest every year. We have the county fair. As a family, we celebrate the normal holidays of Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter, all those parties. But as you read Exodus 22 through 24, you'll see that God commands that all the Israelites were supposed to gather together, especially after they entered into the Promised Land, for 3 festivals a year. And I've already mentioned a little explanation of all the other laws and why God gave the laws in the previous video. So this video, I just want to focus, especially what it says in Exodus 23 about Sabbaths and festivals. So first of all, God saw the value of work. He's the one who created this world with potential, with the ability to make it fruitful and multiply. That's what God wanted us to do with this world, and so we are to work. And yet He also told us to rest. That work is supposed to be balanced by an understanding that it's ultimately God who provides all that we have, all that we need, the ability and the resources to make things be fruitful and multiply. And so after every 6 years, the 7th year, they were supposed to have a year of rest, to not cultivate or plant, but that was supposed to be a year where the poor and the marginalized were able to eat from what was in their fields. Also, it was trust that God was going to provide so much plenty in those first 6 years. They were to save up, that they were to be able to have a whole year of rest. Pretty remarkable savings plan, something I think all of us, myself included, could learn from. The same thing with the time of their week. They were to work hard all week and save up their time, their energy, prepare for the 7th day of rest, to enjoy, to worship God, to look back on all the things that God had done for them that last week. But then He gets into the 3 festivals. There were quite a few festivals that God wanted them to celebrate, but there were 3 high festivals, 3 important festivals, and they're called here the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Ingathering, or Ingathering, and the Feast of the Harvest. These are also called in other places Passover, Pentecost, or Feast of Weeks, and then the Festival of Booths. And so the Passover was this looking back. They were supposed to sacrifice a lamb. Remember how it was the Passover lamb that got them out of Egyptian slavery. And then they were supposed to celebrate a week of unleavened bread, where all the leaven would be swept out of their houses. They were to get all the leaven out. Then that day after the Passover was they had a first fruits offering. They were supposed to celebrate that they would have kind of the first of their harvest would start to bud, and then 50 days later all of the harvest would come in. All of the harvest would come in, the Feast of Weeks. So 50 days after the Passover. And then in the second half of the year, they were to also celebrate the Feast of Booths. They were to make these little makeshift booths, also called Sukkoth, in their yard, and they were to live out in these kind of tents, these kind of little booths that they would make. They'd be camping in the yard. And this was to remind them how they camped in the wilderness, how God preserved them into the wilderness, and now they were in the Promised Land. Now they had reached the goal of their trip. And so these Old Testament celebrations and festivals, not only did they look back on what God had done for them, that God had provided rescue out of Egyptian slavery at the Passover, that God had given them crops, or given them food in the wilderness, Feast of Weeks, and that He had provided for them in the wilderness, and now they enter the Promised Land. They were also supposed to look ahead. They look ahead when it comes to the work of Jesus. Jesus was the Passover lamb. And because that Passover lamb was sacrificed for us, we are to sweep the leaven of our sin out of our homes, out of our lives, because that Passover lamb has been sacrificed. Then the Feast of Weeks, or Pentecost, look forward to the day in the New Testament church where you had a harvest of souls. 3,000 people came into the church on that day of Pentecost. And then the Feast of Booths was to celebrate that one day God is going to renew this world. Right now, we kind of live in these tabernacles of our bodies, and we live in this kind of broken tent-like existence. We're just sojourners here. We're just pilgrims here. But one day, we're going to celebrate in the renewed world. The true promised land will celebrate how God has brought us into the renewed world. The renewed world, sometimes also called heaven. So I think we need to continue to celebrate festivals, celebrate obviously Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter. These festivals teach us eternal realities. They help us gather together and give us our identity. And that was something that God commanded in the Old Testament, and something I think we can treasure in the New Testament as Christians. Hopefully that helps. Keep reading. Don't give up.